components that we're going to put into a necklace that I am entitling the Showstopper necklace. These are components that we'll be building individually out of some of our new product, and then once we have the components built, then I'll show you a number of different ways to link them together. In addition to being a necklace, it could also be earrings, it can be a pendant by itself, it could be links for a bracelet as well, for a rather large kind of showstopper bracelet. The showstopper necklace is going to consist of these components that are made up of one of our newest products that we're carrying here at the Potomac Bead Company. These are the Potomac Crystal 2-hole square settings in the violet color. So it's hard to show on the screen, obviously under different lights. They're a little bit more purple than they look here on the video. These are 12 millimeter 2-hole settings that hold that nice sparkly crystal that we have in a number of different colors. I'm choosing to use the violet color. Depending on what you want to make and how you want to use these components, you'll obviously need one per component. In addition to the 12 millimeter violet setting, I also have the IrisDuos. Each component consists of 16 IrisDuo beads. If you need any of the materials that I'm listing off, you can go to the top right-hand corner to purchase from me online. There's a little I there, which is information from us as the video creators for you guys with links to the different products. As well, at the bottom of the video here, there's a little below there, a date stamp that says when the video was published. If you look there, there's a little button that says show more with a down arrow. Click on that and it'll give you links to these products as well. So again, the IrisDuos are in the jet bronze color and you need 16 per component. If you're doing earrings, obviously you're going to need to double that amount. If you're doing a necklace, which I'm going to be doing 3 components for my necklace, you will need 3 times that amount, or if you want to do 5 components and so on. In addition to your 12 millimeter 2-hole square setting in the violet color and your IrisDuos in those jet bronze, you're going to be using some Potomac Bead Company DiscDuos. So the DiscDuos here that I have are in the Crystal Sliperit Matted Full color. It has a nice orange and purple and kind of goldeny tone to it. Each component uses 4 of the DiscDuos to build up the base along the side of the actual square setting. Here on the sides, just a little add-in, I have some Minos in the Pastel Bordeaux color, and you will need again 4 of those per component. We're using 11/0 and 15/0 seed beads. The 11/0 seed beads are the Miyuki brand, and they are coated in the Czech Republic. They are the crystal amber color of the 11/0 seed bead. In addition to that, we have the galvanized yellow gold, the Duracoat galvanized yellow gold 15/0 seed beads, also the Miyuki brand. To bind the components, I'm going to be using some 2x3 millimeter Potomac Crystal Rondelles, and these are the purple metallic color. And I also have a Claspgarten push clasp here, one of the ball clasps that I'll be using at the back of the Showstopper necklace. The whole necklace is going to be done on wildfire beading thread, and I'm using the gray color in 0.006 of the wildfire. Because I am using wildfire beading thread, I have a couple tools handy. One is the thread zap, which is going to be used to burn down the edge of my thread on my design, as well as burn it off the spool. Because when I burn, it creates a little bit of a bubble at the end of the wire, or the end of the thread. I have a needle nose pliers here that I can flatten that out and make it easier to thread my needles. I'll be working with size 12 pony needles here. Little ideal for storage. I always just rip off the front of the package so I know what it is, and I put it in an empty seed bead container rather than having it in one of the wooden cases. So I have a size 12 needle. I have my thread zap and my thread burner, and you want a nice workable surface. Some people also like to use glue. If you are a gluer, I would recommend using Super New Glue, which is a nice quick drying super glue to do the knots, or to glue the knots on the ends of the project. Again, this Showstopper necklace is going to vary as far as how many materials you need, depending on whether you want to do 3 components, 5 components, 6 components, or whether or not you want to make it a bracelet and have 5 components, have just 2 components and make them necklace or earrings rather. So play around kind of with the design, decide what you want to do, and then we'll get these nice square settings wrapped up in kind of a peyote style, and we'll get ready to begin our design. To begin the design, I want you to get out your IrisDuos, your 11/0 seed beads, and your DiscDuos, and we'll get ready with 5 feet of beading thread on our needle. So to begin, I have all of my materials out as far as my IrisDuos and my DiscDuos, and the 11/0 seed beads I have a little pile. I have my 5 feet of beading thread on my size 12 needle, and I have a bead that's not included in the project that was on my bead mat from another project, and I'm going to bring that down on the thread till I have about 3 inches left. Taking the thread and needle, I'm going to go through that bead twice to create a stop bead. The bead and the thread will go on the outside of the bead, and the needle goes away from that 3-inch tail. This stop bead, I always use a bead that's not included in the project because I like to know that that bead is going to come off the project. From here, I'm going to go in and go through my first hole of my 2-hole square setting. It doesn't matter which hole you go into, but you're going to go into one of the setting sides. On the sides of the 2-hole square, we have the side where the holes are right next to one another. On that side, we are going to add 1 seed bead, and our IrisDuos, if you haven't worked with them, they're 2-sided. They have a flat side and a side that has a little bit of a roundness to it. I'm going to grab the IrisDuos so that they will sit up with the rounded side facing the top. I'm going to grab 3 of those IrisDuos going through the first hole. From there, add an 11/0 seed bead onto your project and sew down the second hole of your square setting. That's going to pop those 3 IrisDuos out to the side of the square setting. From here, I'm going to repeat on the opposite side, adding an 11/0 seed bead, then my IrisDuos, the 3, 1, 2, 3, making sure that they're facing up again, putting those on through the base hole, and then another 11/0 seed bead, and go back through that square setting. The square setting I'm going to go back through right near that stop bead and out the opposite end. I want to make sure to pull my thread and needle at this point and my thread to make sure that I don't have a lot of extra thread exposed. So that stop bead should be right up against the square dowel, or the square setting rather. From here, I'm going to add my 5 IrisDuos on the sides, linking and kind of circling around that square setting. Add an 11/0 seed bead onto your needle, and then 5 of your IrisDuos, again facing up through the first hole of the IrisDuo. So I'm going to grab those through that first hole, making sure they're all facing the same direction, that they're all facing up, because you want them facing the same direction of the crystal. 5 of them go on, and then I add another 11/0 seed bead. I'm going to take the thread and needle around the side of that square setting and go back into the hole near the stop bead and back through the square setting out towards where your thread is starting. Give a nice tight pull, and that'll pull those right in towards the setting. From here, I want to do the opposite side, so I'm going to go back through my IrisDuo set of 3, going through the 11/0 and the 3 IrisDuos, back through then, after going through that first hole of the IrisDuos, I'm going to go back through the 11/0 seed bead and back through the square setting, through that first hole and out the side. Once I'm out that side and I'm through that first hole, I need to add 5 more of the IrisDuos on. When I'm coming out the hole, I want to make sure that I'm coming out the hole and not another part of the setting, and that I'm also not going through the 11-0 seed bead. Here on the side, I'm going to repeat adding those 5 IrisDuos, making a curved edge here, and go into that same hole to round it out. When adding those last 5 beads and coming back down through the 2-hole setting, you want to give a nice tight pull to make sure that you don't see any extra thread. At this point, you want to add in your DiscDuo beads. So again, I had those 4 DiscDuo beads here ready to go. You can see I brought the thread and needle after adding my 5 IrisDuos through the 11-0 seed bead right after that setting. Once I'm out from there, it's going to be time to actually add in my DiscDuo beads. To add the DiscDuo beads on the side here, I'm going to come right out of that 11-0 seed bead and add the DiscDuo in. And it doesn't matter which hole of the DiscDuo I go into. From here, I'm going to go through the 11-0 on the other side towards the setting. So I have this group of 3. I'm going to take my needle and thread through the 11-0 towards the setting. That's going to kind of force that DiscDuo to sit up. From there, I'm going to go through the 11-0 and the first IrisDuo on the outer edge. As you can see, I went through the 11-0 and the IrisDuo. And this is coming out on the side with the 5 IrisDuos. From here, add an 11-0, your next DiscDuo, and an 11-0. The DiscDuos are going to sit straight up right along the base or the side of the actual setting. From here, skip over to the other side here of that grouping of 5. Go through the 5th bead as well as the seed bead and out. That's also going to pull those IrisDuos in a little bit. From here, skip over to the next grouping, that grouping of 3. Sew through the 11-0 seed bead, which is going to pull that last DiscDuo in tight. Add your next DiscDuo. Sew through the 11-0 seed bead at the end of that line of 3 and out. Making sure that DiscDuo sits to the top of the IrisDuos right along the pendant. From here, again, sew through the 11-0 on that grouping of 5 and the first IrisDuo. Add in an 11-0 seed bead, your next DiscDuo, and your 11-0 seed bead. To secure that in place, go through the 5th IrisDuo in that grouping of 5. And again, we're just going through the first hole of those IrisDuos. Through the 11-0, and at the same time I'm going to go through the 11-0 and the DiscDuo that I put on first. So I'm kind of circling around. Give a nice tight pull and get that DiscDuo to kind of pop down into place. Again, what this is going to do is pull those DiscDuos in towards the project. The DiscDuos, then I'm going to go around the inner edge of the DiscDuos and add in my 11-0 seed beads, which are going to kind of encapsulate that 12mm square 2-hole crystal. Adding in my 11-0 seed beads, I'm going to add in 6 of my 11-0 seed beads around the top of each of those corners. To get to the top hole of the DiscDuo, you're going to take your thread, which is currently coming out the bottom hole, and reverse the thread direction on that same bead coming out the top hole. Again, when I'm out the top hole of that DiscDuo, so we're at the top hole there, we're going to add 6 of our 11-0s. And once you have 6 on, go from one DiscDuo to the next DiscDuo going through that top hole. You can see it kind of curves it around. From here again, 6 beads go on. And we go and we catch the next of the DiscDuos. Sewing through. 6 more, so we're doing this a series of 4 times. So you're getting 24 beads on in groupings of 6, catching onto the upper hole of the DiscDuos. This is also going to pull those in a little bit as you work around with them. The last 6 11s will go on the needle. And then I'm going to catch and go through that first hole of that DiscDuo that the thread was coming out of, as well as going through the first 11 seed bead that we put on in the grouping. Give a nice tight pull, kind of push your square down and bring your seed beads towards the top and pull, that will pull them in. From here, we're going to do a little bit of peyote stitch on the top here, and then we'll drop down from the DiscDuos, which you can see kind of set up, creating that little bezel, and we'll go and progress to the outer edge of all of our IrisDuos and adding in our Minos and getting those final cornered pieces. So we're going to grab our 15 seed beads now and get ready to do our little bezel setting, pulling in the seed beads closer to the center of the square crystal, which is also going to cover up a lot of that silver. So to start the peyote stitch, I'm going to stitch through that first line of my 6 11-0s, as well as the next DiscDuo. This is going to kind of secure that line a little bit and pull those beads in just a tiny bit tighter. From here, what I want to do is add in 1 row of peyote stitch. To do the peyote stitch, after coming out the DiscDuo, add another 11-0, skip the first 11-0, and sew through the second 11-0. Make sure that that second row that we're adding here goes towards the front of the project. Again, add an 11, skip the 3rd bead, go through the 4th bead. Making sure that bead stays towards the top. Again, add 1 more 11-0. We had 6 originally, seed beads. You're going to skip the 5th bead, go through the 6th bead, and come out the next DiscDuo. Again, push that bead towards the top of the component. When you look at it then, on the angle, you can see that peyote stitch that was formed. There's 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Flipping over, we're going to do that at each section. Coming out the DiscDuo, add a bead, go into the seed bead number 2. Next one, add a bead, go into seed bead number 4. Add a bead, go into seed bead number 6, as well as the next DiscDuo and out. I'm going to do this 2 more times, getting in that peyote stitch along the corners, adding in 3 more seed beads on this corner and 3 more seed beads on that corner. As I add in the very last seed bead, I'm sewing through the last 11-0 in the line, as well as the DiscDuo. When exiting the DiscDuo, I'm going to step up through that first seed bead that I added on the peyote row. In between here, I'm going to add a 15-0, sew through the next bead sticking up on that peyote row. So I'm sewing through the 2nd bead that I added. I'm going to add a 15-0 and sew through the 3rd bead that I added. So you can see that puts 2 15-0s on the corners. Giving a tight pull, I'm going to make sure to kind of bend that corner in over the square dowel. Linking then over the round or the DiscDuo, I'm going to add 3 15-0s. excuse me, 3 15-0 beads get added. I'm going to skip over the DiscDuo and sew into my next little edge of peyote there, going through the first bead. When I come out the first bead of those 3 sticking up, I'm going to give a nice tight pull and bend that bezel set in towards the center. Add a 15, sew through the second bead sticking up. So you're just continuing the peyote stitch with 15s, which is going to bring it in closer. Add the next bead, sew through the third 11 on that corner. Give a nice tight pull. Add your 3 15s and go to the next grouping of your peyote stitch, skipping over the DiscDuo bead. Give a nice tight pull to pull that corner in more. Add 2 more 15s on the corner here. 1 15 added, coming from bead 1 to bead 2. Add another 15 going from bead 2 to bead 3 sticking up. So if you know peyote stitch, this is pretty easy. Give a nice tight pull to pull that in towards the center. 3 more 15s are added and go into your last grouping there of your peyote on the corner. From there, you go through the first bead, add a 15 through the second 11-0 sitting up, add a 15 through the third bead sitting up, 3 15s, and that's going to pull in that final corner. When I pull in the final corner, I want to go through the 11-0 on the side there of the DiscDuo. It's a little bit of a tight fit, but you can get your needle in there and out. Once you're done adding that row of your 15s, you want to give a nice tight pull, kind of bend your beads in and around that bezel. From here, I'm going to secure that by going through that outer row one more time. So I'm sewing back through all of the 11-0s and the 15-0s sitting on the corners. When I get to the 11-0s on the side, I'm going to reinforce that as well. So you're just retracing your thread steps, not adding any beads. Again, what this does is it pulls in all of the beads towards the center and makes it a little bit tighter. This is the second go around here to make it tighter. I'm going to do a third pass around this center to make it even more secure. When I do the third pass, I'm going to go through the center 3 beads of each corner, the 15, the 11, the 15. From there, I'm going to skip the next 11 and just go through the corner 3, skipping that last 11 and going through the 3 seed beads on the sides of the DiscDuo. We'll pull that project in even more. You won't notice as you pull tight the thread that's kind of jumping over that 11-0 seed bead. So you're going into the 15, 11, 15, in each of the corners, skipping the last 11, and catching on to the 3 seed beads in, or above rather, the DiscDuo. I'm going to sew through that grouping, and then as the final kind of push here around as I get to the final corner, I'll do a nice tight pull, which will tighten this up a ton around that square setting. From here, then, we're going to get from the inner section basically to our outer loop. So I'm going to give a nice tight pull, pushing that piece down, give a nice tight pull. That'll pull those corners in a little bit more. From here, then, what we're going to do is progress from the inside like I said, to that outer edge. To do so, I'm going to get my thread and needle, going down the peyote line on an angle to come out one of my DiscDuo beads. When I have the thread and needle coming out the DiscDuo, right there, we're going to be coming out the top hole of one of the DiscDuo beads. Just like we did when we jumped up, we're going to take the thread and needle, run it along the side of the DiscDuo from one hole to the other. This is going to expose a little bit of thread on the side of the DiscDuo, but because of the coloring, you won't really see it at all. So you can see a tiny bit of thread right there. From here, I'm going to jump down to kind of the back of the project, take my needle through the back, and you can see that I have those two 11-0 seed beads to go through. I'm going to go through those two corner 11-0s, as well as through one of my IrisDuos. When I come out the IrisDuo then, I'm going to take the project and step up on the IrisDuo. So I went through the 11-0s and then through the first hole of the IrisDuo. Stepping up just like we did then with the DiscDuos, we're going to go from the base hole, or the hole closest to the square setting, to the outer hole of the IrisDuo. That's going to get us towards that outer edge. From here, we're going to put our Minos in between our grouping of 5 and 3. And then we're going to put 11-0 seed beads between the rest of the sections here. So between my grouping of 5 and my 3, I'll put my Minos in the corners. So you need 3 of the Minos beads. And then the rest we're going to put 11-0s. On our grouping of 5, we're going to put 1 11-0 on the corners here. And then in the middle, 2 11-0s. So coming out between the section of 5 and 3, grab one of your Minos bead and go through your first IrisDuo. Give a nice tight pull and make sure that Minos bead is sitting so that the barrel shape or the rounded end is sitting straight up. From here on the sides, you want to do 2 of your seed beads through the groupings of 3 and through the next hole of the IrisDuo. Again, 2 seed beads near your grouping of 3 and through the next IrisDuo. So just sewing right along the outer edge. Between my grouping of 3 IrisDuos and 5, I add a Minos and up through the next of my IrisDuos. From here then, you're going to, on your grouping of 5, add 1 11-0 through your next IrisDuos. On the tip there, 2 11-0s and through, coming out that corner tip, 2 more 11-0s and through. And as you're going through that last one in the grouping of 5, 1 11-0 gets added and through the next IrisDuo. I'm here on the corner again, so I'm going to add my Minos bead between the groupings of beads. So grab a Minos bead and sew it right in between those groupings. Give a nice tight pull and push the Minos in place, which when you do that, it kind of pushes the IrisDuos out to the side. The grouping of 3, again, they get 2 11-0s in between. So 2 11s go on, 2 11s go on, and on to the next. I'm at the point now where I'm on my last grouping of 5. My last Minos beads go on. I go through the first of the IrisDuo in that grouping of 5. After that first IrisDuo, and making sure the Minos sits correctly, I'm going to go ahead in and add my 1 11-0, coming out the corner then, 2 11-0s, another 2 11-0s through the IrisDuo, and then my 1 11-0 through the IrisDuo and through the Minos bead. When I'm done this, you kind of want to push your pendant, your little component here flat. At this point, if you wanted to, you could be finished. That's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and I think adding the little corner beads actually make it a lot more substantial. Where the beads are going to be added are we're going to switch from our 11 O's to our 15 O's. We're going to add our 5 15 O's over the corner IrisDuos. So it's the middle of the 3 and the middle of the 5. So always basically on the point, which is going to be the bead that sits right on the sides of the DiscDuo. 5 seed beads get added there. Additionally, we're going to add 5 seed beads around the Minos bead. To get to each of those sections, you're just going to take your thread and needle and go through the outer edge that you just added. So I'm coming out here of the last of my Minos beads. I'm going to go through my IrisDuo, through my seed beads, and then I'm at that point, which is going to sit again right next to the DiscDuo. At that point, pick up 5 of your 15s and skip over the IrisDuo and go through the seed beads and the next IrisDuo. Coming out near the Minos bead, it's time to add another 5 of your 5 of your 15 O's. 5 beads get added. And we're getting ready to finish the component, going around them, coming out near that Minos, skip over the Minos bead, go into the IrisDuo, and now I'm working my thread and needle around through that inner section here, going through all these beads till I get out near the top of one of my IrisDuos. Again, I'll know that I'm there because it's going to be directly across from the DiscDuo. From here, I'm going to continue circling around, adding 5 beads on my 3 last points and my 5 beads on the sides of my Minos bead. What that does is create a little bit of a peak on the Minos bead corners, and then the 5 around the IrisDuos kind of round it out. So continue adding your 15 O's as your final little fringe piece around the whole project component. At this point then I have my component finished, and all I'm going to do is actually tie off the actual component and the actual thread, and then we are going to add them together here in this nice necklace design. So you can really change up kind of the design look of the necklace, exactly where you want to put them, exactly how far apart you want these to be, and at what angle you would like to do. I am going to be tying off the thread for this final one here by taking my thread and needle back towards that stop bead. The fastest way to do that is going to be to retrace my thread here through the IrisDuo along the side, through the 11O, through the actual square piece, and then I'm going to tie the thread off here along the back. It's easier to do this, obviously, when you're not kind of right in front of a camera, and if you need to, you can take your thread and needle from the front to the back and vice versa, just kind of pushing your thread from one area to the other, which will bring the thread towards the back. As I do this and finish up them, I'm just going to tie the piece off and tie the thread ends together, and that component will be all finished up. Again, we're then going to go through and add the components together with our crystals and with our seed beads. So to connect the components, I did one side here to show you where they are connecting, or where I'm going to connect them. Like I said, you really can kind of connect them anywhere. I'm simply going to pick up one of my 15O seed beads and then 2 crystals which are separated by 15Os. So I'm going to have one 15O on my needle. So pick up a crystal, 15, crystal, and a 15. Push that down so you just have a little bit of a tail and hold on to the tail. sew through one of the corners near the Minos of your project. On the other side, repeat that pattern of the 15 in your crystal, 15, crystal, 15. Let that drop down next to your project. And then you're going to pick up the corner of the Minos when it's sitting in a diamond shape and pick up that corner 15-0 seed bead. And sew through. Because this is how they're linking and it's not the actual lightest of little components here, I'm going to sew back through that 15 crystal 15 on the one side. I'm going to sew back through this 3 times, circling up. After I sew through it 3 times and reinforce it, I'm going to make sure to pull the thread nice and tight, and then just do a square knot right over left, left over right. Burn the thread edges down, and then burn the thread edges flush against the project. So you can see I'm pulling nice and tight. And that is going to combine then the project right there along the center. If you wanted them to sit closer, you would just use one of the crystals. If you want them to sit further apart, you'd use more. If you don't want them to sit apart at all, you would just connect right at that 15-0, adding a 15 on either side. I liked a little bit of bling to make this kind of showstopper pendant to sit apart from one another. So I'll take this through this loop one more time, and then we're going to kind of mimic this pattern as we do the back portion of the necklace. To finish up the last portion of the necklace, like I said again, we are mimicking the little connection point here, the whole length of the rope. To do so, I did one side, and I'm going to do the other side with you. When I attach to this rope portion or to the chain area, I'm attaching to one of the IrisDuo points. So down here, remember we connected to one of the points of the Minos. Here at the top, I'm connecting to the IrisDuo that is basically the furthest point away. To connect and to create the necklace, I'm actually going to start with the back here and work my way down. The first thing I'm going to do is stick on a stop bead. Let that fall down to your thread, again just leaving yourself enough to do a knot. So just have about 1.5 inches down there. Take that thread and needle through that bead 2 times. From here I'm going to start with a pattern going down with one needle and then coming back up, or going down with one row rather, and coming back with the other side. My pattern is going to be very simple. I'm going to start with a crystal, and I have my necklace being about 16.5, 17 inches. I'm using 31 crystals total. To add my beads here, 41 crystals total rather. I have my beads on, one of my crystals, then I'm going to do 3 15-0s. After that, the pattern is crystal, 15, crystal. Let that drop. Now start the pattern over again. 3 15s, 1, 2, 3, then crystal, seed bead, crystal. So that pattern is going to get repeated the whole length of the chain. So I'm going to go ahead and add in all of my beads there, right along the chain, adding them in, and then once I have them added in, we're going to connect to the component down here in the corner, and then I'll show you how we're going to go back up the chain. So I'm done my 15 rotations. I did misspeak earlier, and it is 31 rather than 41. So I'm done with the rotation of doing 15 groupings of 2. From here, I'm done with the last grouping, and what I'm going to do is get ready to add it in to that component. To do so, pick up a 15-0 and sew through the corner seed bead of that furthest most IrisDuo. Once you're through that corner, I'm going to pick mine up to do it. You're coming out of the corner, and we're going to go back up the project in order to get that mimicked lacy look. From this point, add 1 seed bead, 1 crystal, 1 seed bead, 1 crystal, 1 seed bead. Let that drop down next to your necklace components. And now what we're going to do is we are going to crisscross through that center bead. The center bead in the grouping of 3, I'm going to take my thread and needle in the opposite direction, so it's going through at a crisscross angle through the beads up at the top. Push the beads down and pull, making sure you're getting rid of any extra thread. After this portion, seed bead, crystal, seed bead, crystal, seed bead. So that's going to be your rotation for the second part of the rope. From here, go to the next grouping of 3, and you're always going to be sewing almost down towards the necklace through that 11-0 seed bead. If you sew up through it, you're not going to get as much of the separation and that lacy look as we're going for. So I'm going to go through that 11-0 delicate, or that 15-0 through the opposite direction and give a nice tight tug. Again, the pattern is 15, crystal, 15, crystal, 15. Go up to the next grouping of 3 and sew down the middle bead, or through in the opposite direction. That makes it sit in that nice X fashion and gets that nice lacy look. You're going to continue doing that the rest of the chain here, and then I'll show you how we are going to add on to our fancy clasp. As I come to the end of the chain, I want to make sure to mimic that Xing design. To do so, I'm going to add a 15-0 onto my seed bead, and then what I'm going to do is go up through the crystal that I added. That's going to make a little bit of that X, and then it's into 1 crystal. From here, I'm going to go over to the clasp, sew through the loop on end of the clasp, go back through the crystal. You can see I'm just kind of holding that stop bead off to the side. I'm going to retrace that line of the 15-0s going through that sideways one, up through the side, up through the crystal. Coming out the crystal then, I'm going to make sure to go in here and go through the loop of the clasp, go back through the crystal, and reinforce it one more time, going through the end here. So I'm sewing back around, catching the end, and making sure I have that reinforced edge. After that reinforced end here is done, I'm going to knot off the project. So if you want to, on the other end where I knotted, was I actually brought the thread back to the side of one of the seed beads. Here at the end, because I have it at the end, I'm just going to take that seed bead off the edge. And if you want to, you can also use a wire guard. You could have used a cut button, all different clasp options. I'm going to take that and just give a nice square knot, left over right, right over left. Do that 3 times to get my knot. And a nice tight pull. From here, I'll take my thread burner. Yeah, I need to get a new battery in this guy here. I'll burn through the edges there and then burn down to make those edges flush against the project. Once I have those flush edges then, my showstopper necklace is complete. Like I said, it's one of those you really can do as many components as you want. You could do it as a necklace, you could do the components as earrings, you could make a whole matching set if you want to. I think it would be fantastic too as a bracelet. So if you get a chance and you want to kind of make along, back at the beginning of the video, there is that little explanation where I have the materials that I used, as well as below the video, the date stamp that says when the video was published, the published date. Below there, there's the show more button. You can click down on the down arrows and get links to purchase all of these products from me online. I'm really excited to play around with a bunch of these new products, the IrisDuos and these Potomac crystals too, to get an idea how to play around and make items like this. Again, if you want to, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel to get regular updates on video designs like this, product spotlights on new beads such as the crystals as well as the IrisDuos, and just general information about what's going on in the beading world. In addition to that, you can stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest, as well as join our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. The Facebook group there is a wonderful way to interact with other people that love to make jewelry, get designs, get ideas, and really inspiration to kind of make your own jewelry and make it your own. That's the best part about doing these videos, is to see what you guys come up with and to strike creativity in the minds of you. And then when you see the different things that people come up with in the Facebook group, it's a wonderful chance to kind of even explore more. So thank you very much for watching the video, and have fun creating the showstopper necklace and component set.